Welcome back to the Everything Property Podcast. As you guessed it, we are still in investing strategies, and one of the most popular by the majority of Australians is the buy and hold strategy. Who better than Arjun Paliwal to join me today to discuss buy and hold strategy, as well as open heart surgeries, buyer's agency of the year last 2 years. Arj, welcome to the show, my friend. Welcome back to the show, one of our first video guests. Welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you?
Mate, I'm good, and a year has flown by really, really quickly, and it's, absolutely great to see the potty in full swing. You guys are doing some pretty epic things, following along on the socials, and good to be back again.
Mate, I think the first thing that a lot of people are wondering about, you've been out of action a little bit. Incredible story. What's happened? Man, fill us in.
Oh, dude, whirlwind event. So talking maybe 8 to 10 months ago, I had a life insurance application I chucked in, got declined for cover, and I'm like, hold on a minute, what's going on? I realized that something was not quite right with the heart, had to go get some extra checks, thought I'd just go get those checks out of the way and it should be sweet. It wasn't. And they've essentially said, look, you need open heart surgery, and the procedure's called the Ross procedure. So pretty full on, like I think 8 to 10 hour plus surgery. And I had that now, at the time of this recording, about 8 weeks ago. And so out and about now, getting my energy back, getting my groove back, still a bit tender, but man, I'm second chance at life. That's all I can say.
And what was the condition, or what was wrong with the heart that needed to be sort of plugged up or fixed?
Yeah, essentially I was born with a heart with a valve that had one less flap than it should have.
Yeah.
And as a result, what ended up happening is there was severe leakage. And when you get that level of leakage, your heart starts expanding. And my heart was like on the most highest possible level of expansion. So it's the biggest it could get. And usually when it gets that big, it's not until later on in life. It happened to me way earlier than I expected. I'm 32 years young. And to get that scary news where they're like, oh, we need to get you in surgery next Tuesday. After sharing that check with me, I'm like, hold on a minute,
Really?
Yeah, and I'm lucky I didn't go for that, by the way. So firstly, the first doctor said, we need to get you in surgery next Tuesday. There's an emergency. Like anything could happen any minute.
Yeah.
I'm like, hold on a minute. It doesn't sound right. I get that something's up, but I'm 32 years young. And if it was a next Tuesday thing, I should have felt a lot of things by now.
Yeah, of course.
Got some second opinions. Second opinions say, hey, yes, it is urgent, but let's do some further checks and get you the best possible care. And so one person was willing to do another procedure. Another person was willing to do another procedure. And that second one, being the Ross procedure, had way more benefits in it than cons.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one appeared to be like a short to medium term fix. Well, this was a long term fix. And I trusted my gut to go, let's go down this path, even though there was only a handful of people in Australia that do it. And I flew over to Melbourne, got it done, and stayed there for a little bit before coming back to Sydney.
Fuck, so 10 hours, 6 to 10 hour operation.
Yeah, usually a 3 to 5, but
Yeah.
this one being a double valve replacement, it went up to like 8 to 10 hours.
Wow,
So intense, man.
Well, how many stitches? Like, what's the scar look like?
So
You'd have some pretty good.
I'd say from here till
Yeah.
about here, I'm fully scarred up. And the scars look even more odd when you're a brown guy because it's absolute pink down the middle. And it's just like the brightest pink out, and then it's like brown everywhere else. And I'm like, this is just different, right? So, yeah.
Tell me, after that, going through that whole experience, what are the changes in sort of your life and your attitude now? We were talking about it a little bit before, but I mean, going through that, being almost, emergency experience on your heart of all places, what's your take on life now? Like, what's your thoughts? You're running this busy business. What's happening?
Mate, it's pretty intense. Like, firstly, I got to admit that whilst I might sit here, talk about it, laugh about it, and be pretty open about it, the 3 weeks post that surgery were the most hell I've been through in my life, right? Like, they were intense. I'm talking, got re-hospitalized 2 times again. I had complications. I was as weak as I've ever felt, energy, physically, walking around, your bone cracks a little. Everything that you could feel bad mentally and physically happened during that time. There's something, though, special about the last 4 weeks. Like, every week after week 3 or 4, it was a huge leap in the right direction. Energy jumping, physical strength improving. Now at week 8, it's like this weird period where you're physically not there, but you mentally are. So like I'm mentally there, energetically, communication, movement, but I can't lift more than 3 or 4 kilos, right? So it's a weird feeling. Now, in terms of what that did for me mindset-wise, anytime you're given a second shot at life, there's always this shift now that's like, why not? That's my thing now. So if we're going to travel somewhere, I'm like, why not? If we need to go to a restaurant, or we want to go to a restaurant and it seems pretty cool, it's just open up, reviews are there. The old mind is like, oh no, maybe next week, should we schedule it? Oh, a bit busy. Why not? Right? Someone in my team is saying, hey, it'd be great to have a role in this division so we could really put this glue here and support this part of the business, and this would be better as a result. Customers would be happy here. Why not? So like this whole why not attitude's kicked in to go, I want to go for everything that I dreamed of, whether that be business, family, hobbies, anything, and just give it a real big go, because it was a moment of like, life's too short.
Nice. Well, is there anything massive planned off the back of that, or sort of just get yourself up to speed and recover slowly? Like, do you have anything in mind?
Yeah.
Travel, do you need to see the world now, or like?
Oh man, look, I'm pretty grateful that I did a lot of traveling before, but traveling's definitely up there still. I don't think you can ever get enough of that. But now I think it's more like, I'd always had plans to go certain places, but now it's without hesitation. It's just like, let's just go do it and we'll figure it out. I'd say the 2 biggest changes have been personally with regards to family. The embracement around like family and everyone around me has leveled up a lot in terms of the time I want to spend with them, the moments I want to share with them, the things I want to do, I want to bring them along with me. And the second part's the business. Like, I always knew our business had and will continue to make impacts for people. But then whenever I think of a year that's going ahead and thinking of how many people we're serving, I think of the differences that we've made for clients of the years prior that, because investing's a long-term thing. It kicks in, right? And now I look at that with a different perspective. I'm like, we need to help more people get to this. And so my motivation for growing our impact as a company in terms of how many people we serve, how many people we get them to their end goals, is like through the roof. So I think that is the biggest shift for me, to know that I'm here to serve. I have a purpose here, and I know we can make a difference. We've made that for hundreds of people. So I want to now do that for many more.
Perfect, man. Well, I love to hear it. Well, let's dive into, it's good to see you back. It's good to see you as well on socials, the videos, the photos, they're all coming back now. So it's great.
Yeah.
Let's dive into what we've set this episode about. We're talking about investment strategies. Obviously, the buy and hold is the most popular. My question to you is, is the buy and hold strategy dead? Like, what? Let's talk about firstly what it is and the different phases, I think. And then we can go into sort of I think a lot of people's main issue, and me too, I have people ask me questions and stuff. And I think the exit strategy and the PPR are the 2 big issues around the buy and hold strategy. But first, for us and everyone listening, break us down into your 3 or 4 parts of your buy and hold strategy for a typical investor.
Yeah, firstly, is buy and hold dead, right? That's the $1 million question. I will say yes or no, because I want to give 2 parts here.
Of course. Cover himself, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely, dude. The yes part is from the lens you place on you. And I'll give you an example. The yes part is someone sitting in Sydney or Melbourne, looking at their local markets, having a certain income, maybe off the back of uni or something that they've worked hard on, and they're ready to attack the workforce. And they're looking at their backyard, and that's all they see. And they just go, what the hell? People are talking about portfolios. But here's one place I can't get my hands on. And this one place is super expensive. Like, how the hell do we make a portfolio out of this when let alone one looks intimidating at me? So if your lens is that, and you're only going to focus on what you can see, touch, you've heard of, your family says, where your parents bought perhaps, where you were raised as a child and growing up, where you maybe live and rent today.
Where you can drive.
Yeah, your hope's gone. Your hope's gone. Buy and hold's dead for you, unless you have the different perspective in play. And the different perspective is going, the game in property investing's changed in Australia to a level where borderless needs to be the norm. It can't be, the feel, the touches, the sun shines through here and it's beautiful, and I like this suburb, and this suburb has great places to eat. My parents grew up here, I live here, I rented here, my uni's there. All these emotional things need to disappear if you want success in the buy and hold to be across the country. And so I think when you're now looking at the phases of buy and hold, when I talk about those hundreds of clients we've helped and that sort of formula we've placed, it's the same formula I've personally followed to build a portfolio. And that formula is using A, foundational properties, B, momentum properties, and C, passive properties. Mm-hmm. Now, when I say A, B, and C, it can sound like, easy as 1, 2, 3, let's get it done, done and dusted.
I wish, yeah.
But it takes time. But what A is, foundational properties, is me actually not trying to tackle the result. It's me trying to tackle the mindset. And the mindset is that even though you want people to be borderless and it's best for them, many people just won't. They may have comforts like major capital cities, major satellite towns, regional centers. I don't want it to be away from this. I want certain economies. I want certain population size. So I'm here going, let's not blow your whole budget, but let's try and see if we can fit an asset or two in this type of market. Mm-hmm. That's those foundational parts so you can sleep at night, because once you get past that first 1 or 2 mentally as an investor, your best friends start coming in. Your best friend is equity. Your best friend is now borrowing capacity with multiple banks because you catch the bug and you want to talk to every broker and figure out what it is. Rents rise over time. Savings and confidence levels pick up because you're starting to be more confident as an investor. You're starting to be more purposeful with your savings because you feel the impact of having 1 or 2 and you're like, I want to try and get more. Your motivation for your career likely progresses too, because once you've tasted the first and the second, you have this ambition set towards, hey, if I get a few more, I can achieve my long-term goals. And this is when we move to momentum investing. All across the nation, looking at where the numbers say it's the best opportunity. Affordability is a key, rental yields are a key, and we're trying to get diversity in markets and start to get a few more moves in. Mm-hmm. This may involve personal name buying, trust buying, maybe by yourself or with a couple, however it may look like. This is the part where you get the most activity, but you need to be patient because it can't just keep happening, right? Borrowing capacity exists, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
And then we move to passive. This is the part where we're going, hey, you know what? I feel good about the asset base I've built. I've got diversity here. And I want to start getting income as a core priority, because your typical home in a suburb, even if you have a couple of those, you're not retiring rich. And that's the key thing to remember. And you're not having a passive income come through that's going to be that substantial where you say, hey, these rents are going to change my life. It's usually when you move to the passive stages where you have higher income focuses, whether that's a house in granny, whether that's house with certain renovations, whether that's a commercial property, or whether that's a block of units, a triplex, a duplex. It's about generating the income because you know the assets are built. Now, depending on you, your income and your savings ability, whether you're single, whether you're a couple, whether you're in your 40s and you've had savings behind you, or whether you're in your 20s and starting, is just the length of the time frame this takes. And so if you start early, you're ambitious in your career, you go at it with a second partner, or not a second partner, but another partner.
Whoa, hang on.
Hey, that's economics 101, right? Partner one.
Wow.
No. Where you're going is your partner as in like a second person, second person.
Of course.
That's going to increase that like velocity, and the speed will suddenly shrink. I happen to have that in my own journey. I started in my early 20s. I had my wife and I from back then. We were growing our careers, so the velocity's really quick. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a second person with you on the journey, if you're not rising career rapidly, and maybe you're going through a phase where you're studying a lot or starting up your journey and, it takes time. And if you're not starting so young, then you just got to be aware that might take a little bit longer. Yep. And so the buy and hold isn't dead to people who look at it with perspective like this.
Perfect. Okay. But tell me, what you've just explained is great. We have the foundation, we have the momentum, and then we have the cash flow. The two questions that I always hear and always see at the time: when and how can we be property investors, investing in other assets, and when can we buy the PPR? Mistake I always see is a lot of people in their early 20s or 30s. They want to get into investing, but or they've got a PPR first, or they want to buy the PPR first and then get into investing. Is there a way that we can do it and have both? If we can build the portfolio, and when can we leverage into a PPR, and how can that look with the buy and hold strategy?
Super important question, dude, because people will look at each property that they're acquiring and they'll be like, is it time now? Can I? And this is a part where there's a lot of confusion that exists. I'm of the opinion that if you go down the PPOR route at the start, be ready for the uphill battle with your investment portfolio. The borrowing capacity is working against you, right?
That's a mad clip. Yeah. That's clip's done.
But with that uphill battle ahead, it's a choice that can still be profitable for you if you know that this PPOR is going to be one you stick with for a long time. Because the issue is not the PPOR. The issue is people going and buying what they think is their PPOR. Then the taste changes. Now they're all about wines instead of beer.
Yeah.
Now they're all about champagne instead of wine. And things change, right? And what ends up happening is that unit in a lovely suburb that you're comfortable with, maybe that you called home, is now not enough. The house kicks in. Then you go, wait, let me put investing to the side again. And then you're in a house in the burbs, and maybe a burb that you thought, I don't really want to be here forever. And things change again, and 20s become 30s, 30s become 40s. I'll put investment to the side again. Let's get our beautiful, bigger home. And then now you're in the lovely suburb, but then maybe you're in your 40s, transition to 50s, and you've got two things happening. Your family's growing up, and you're suddenly going, do we need this much space? And secondly, you're looking at retirement down the barrel, and you're like, holy crap, we aren't ready for this. We are nowhere near it. And that's more dangerous. Not the fact that you did the PPOR, but this bouncing ball approach to PPORs, that's the part where it kills everyone. Because I asked a good friend of mine, I said, hey, if you're going to do that journey, which was what they were thinking, I want you to just ask yourself this question. Would you like to catch up on your investments and be like, I need to get there before my retirement age? Or would you like to catch up on your home knowing that your investments are set for life? And this hit them really hard. And they were like, I want to catch up on my home. Because if I know I'm set, say I spent 5 to 10 good hard years from my 25 to 35 or 30 to 40, 35 to 45, either. And I set myself up knowing I'm going to be okay for retirement. You've got life to chase the PPOR. And just because you haven't got it and you've got life ahead to chase it, and you can take time, it could be 5 or 10 years until your borrowing capacity develops, rents rise, incomes rise. The thing is, it's not like you weren't living anywhere during the time. You had to have shelter. So you're living somewhere, you're renting somewhere, and it's probably going to be cheaper than the PPOR. But at least you can take it there, and it's a marathon to get to the home. So that's one consideration. If you're going to look at that, do you want to catch up on investing, or do you want to catch up on that home?
Great question.
The second part to consider is this. If you do have one earlier, you started with the PPOR, knowing that investing's an uphill battle, take your time. And now you've just got to stick to not constantly upgrading this PPOR, and eventually the investing battles will get easier because your incomes will rise over time, borrowing capacity. Remember, the world can't move unless credit moves and grows. So as crazy as it sounds, some point in the future, borrowing capacity is going to unlock even more whether you do something or not. Just because the way the world works, it needs credit to constantly grow. And if borrowing capacity is not improving through credit output, somehow income will increase for credit to have higher output. But the main thing you can believe is credit will always have a higher output over time. And so as a result, credit's more available at some point, incomes are rising, you're going to get there at some point. So that's if you're going the first way. Just don't do this bouncy ball and upgrades. Now, if you decide to invest and you look at the PPR now, this is the part where you have another uphill battle, but at least it's the one you're more comfortable with, knowing you're set for life. And at this point here with the PPR, I'm a big believer that you can look at it. You're not going to be happy with the budgets that you can get, but you chip away. Just like you did with the portfolio, you chip away. As a couple or as on your own, you're looking at your goals, your income, your household, where do you want to live? Because now even the PPOR is not like geographically locked in. How many people have a workplace in Brisbane but live in another side town? How many people have a workplace in Sydney but live in regional Australia? The world's changing, so even your view to a PPOR can change as well.
That's true, and I think a good point to note with that is once you have those investments set and you might be chasing that PPOR for 5 or 10 years, you got to remember is that you're not just increasing your income for 5 or 10 years. You've got this massive asset base of properties that are all growing at speed. And I talk to my partner about this all the time, is that in her argument is obviously what are the prices going to be of that PPR when we want to buy it in those 5 or 10 years' time. It's like, it's not about what that is, because that is one asset that's growing, even call it 8 or 10% a year. When you can buy those properties and have them on your side and in your corner, they are then growing at, a similar rate or maybe a little bit less, but then that compound interest just catches up so quickly to that PPR, right?
Yeah, I mean, what you just touched on there is not even just like a PPR thing. It's actually also just investing itself, because you reminded me of the story, a gentleman by the name of Simon, good friend of mine based in Brisbane, one of our clients from 2018, so 6 years on. I can remember the first phone call with Simon. In 2018, he called me and he said, another buyer's agency basically said no to him because his budget's not big enough. And there was all this communication around, you needed to have a large budget, can't get in, buy more quality properties. He got in on a budget of $268,000 on a place in Western Brisbane in 2018. A house, not a unit, a house. That house is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars more now. And he was in a modest income. It wasn't anything high. I even had to put his fees on a payment plan back then to support him. And he was really appreciative of that. We really helped each other out. I was new to business in 2018. Mm-hmm. He was new to investing. And he goes, no, look, you heard me out. You made me feel like a person. You're wanting to help me. Why that's important is, coming to your point, if he had waited for that perfect property, that perfect budget, and was not in the game, how far would it have gone? He wouldn't have been able to catch up. Just like those PPRs when you're doing no investing and sitting on the sideline. He kept investing. He got in. And from one affordable place, we went to another. And he's now got 2 properties in his portfolio. And again, on a very modest income. So in his mind, he's just like, this is unreal. I didn't wait. I shouldn't have waited. And I'm glad I didn't wait. And so that's a perfect story just there. Even when you're going for a PPR, because you got on those investments, they're helping you out.
Perfect. And then, well, if we've sort of figured out, PPR, talk to me a little bit about then exit strategies out of this particular investing strategy. How are we exiting and how are we retiring from the buy and hold? What are our main exit strategies?
Yeah, firstly, I think in terms of timelines, they'll help you guide with the exit strategy. Timelines itself, most people keep using this 10-year thing. I don't know where that came from. Like everything doubles in 10 years, 10 properties in 10 years, hold your portfolio for 10 years, retire in 10 years. Like where does this 10-year thing come from?
It sounds good.
Yeah, it's like,
sounds like
whoever invented that 10-year marketing thing, like hats off to them. Everyone's taking it. Everyone's stuck to this. That's the first thing. I found when I design portfolio plans for people, 2 decades seems to be the sweet spot. And it's actually not like that long. If you think about it, 30s, 2 decades on top, you're 10 to 20 years ahead of retirement age. 40s, 2 decades on top, you're on track for retirement age. 50s, you have a little bit less time than that, unless you're, fit and working into the 70s. Yeah. Not sure how many people want to do that, but that's up to them.
Maybe.
And if you're in your 20s, you're well ahead. So it's almost like 20s, 30s, and 40s, you're going to be comfortable and be very much still successful, even with the 2 decades attached to it. Mm-hmm. Now, why 2 decades are needed is I realize that whenever anyone talks about a portfolio, they do one big math wrong. And the math that they get wrong is they think that whatever value that you need, it's only $4 million of assets held for the long term and you're fine. Who's bought $4 million in one go instantly? They haven't. So the first 5, 7 years even can be spent just buying. So yes, you think you've got 20 years and you're compounding for 20 years, but no, you're not compounding that full balance until year 7. So you've actually got 13 years only of compounding, not 20. And people get that wrong all the time. They think that when someone starts investing, you've bought your whole portfolio year 1. You don't. And so the first 5 years, 7 years, I'd be buying. The rest of the phases, you're optimizing. So I call that my acquisition phase, then my optimize phase. And optimize to me looks at what are the little things I could do? Maybe cosmetic renovations. Maybe I'm tinkling around with my interest rates, my offset accounts, my refinancing, my rent rises, my income rises, my money in my offset accounts, all these things that you're looking at, you're optimizing your portfolio to the best. Now you get to consolidation. At consolidation, there's a few ways you can do this. You can passively consolidate, which is someone with a great income growth over time, because it's 2 decades, lots can change. Great savings rates, great rents that have been hitting the portfolio, and your offset balances just fill up and you don't really have much to sell or exit. You're in a place where 2 decades is almost just on by itself is 2/3 of your loan term, right?
Yep.
Or someone goes through an aggressive consolidation and they look at their investments and go, maybe I need 4 assets debt free. Well, you can't buy 4 to get 4 debt free all the time. You probably need to buy a little bit extra so you can let some go. But the most powerful actual exit strategies is a downsize of a PPOR. When you have a principal place of residence, and if you're going to get one, maybe when you're getting one and if you've done your investing, get one that's maybe bigger than you need. Get one that's nicer than you can get or want to get. Just because when you have that
Arjun Paliwal, I'll talk to you investment advice. Get a massive PPR. Yeah,
get something nice because it's tax-free dollars based on today's rules, compounding, right? So for our aspects, I can share this with you. My PPOR is worth about 5 and a bit million. And the purpose of me sharing that is that actually is the biggest asset out of my overall investments. And so when that compounds, we'll use the good old 10-year rule again, hey?
Yeah.
It doubles in 10 years.
Yeah.
And if I decide, no, acreage is now too much for us and we don't want to be here and this is not the right fit, that downsize is the greatest exit strategy you can get. It's tax-free dollars. It wipes out debts. And this is the part many people forget. When you downsize an investment portfolio and you use investments to downsize, you're losing a stream of income. If you had 4 and you're going down to 3, you just lost 25% of your rents. So don't talk passive income just because it's debt-free. You just lost a quarter of your rents. So I think in consolidation, this is how I view it. Firstly, you get the timeline right. Secondly, you consolidate either passively or aggressively. And if you can, go PPOR downsize first. And if you can't, then you have to have a few more investments or consider what your superannuation does for you when you get to it. All of these factors combined, you generate some sustainable income streams that are not interest-only income streams, real income streams because it's debt-free as a portfolio.
What are your thoughts on the net yield out of resi in comparison to commercial?
Yeah, I think this is where some transition needs to happen at some point. I'm at that stage now where my wife and I have looked at each other and going, hey, that's it for residentials now. We're just moving to commercials. It's not because residentials are bad. Residentials got us to here. The key is that they do the leverage parts. I didn't have to save as much. I could borrow to 90% and beyond. Okay, great. They've done the compounding parts. We've had it for 9 years of investing now, and they've compounded over time, and therefore it becomes easier each year because there's a bigger balance that we're growing each year. But then when you look at the income sides of it, they don't produce what they should be if you had the same money or similar money sitting in stocks or commercial property. And so when you're consolidating, this is risk appetite. If you consolidate and you've added passive income assets to the mix, that foundation momentum passive, most people should not be consolidating that passive asset. You should be consolidating the growth assets or your PPR downsize and getting your commercials debt-free. Or if you're not going to have the passive assets because you just focused on residential buying and you couldn't quite get to those last stage of buying, passive, you may look at a switch. Selling your residentials completely, switching over to commercial, and suddenly your yields can jump. Or I've even seen many who've actually gotten a better result through selling the whole property portfolio completely, and they've gone to stocks and had high dividends with high liquidity in a managed fund come retirement time because they didn't want the crappy net yields. They didn't want an aircon to think about. They didn't want a vacancy to think about. It was just a blind managed fund sitting there. But property got them there though, because they felt like, hey, my managed funds didn't have the leverage. My managed funds didn't have that control. I didn't have the bank valuations. I didn't have the equity release to grow. That was property doing its job. And sometimes you can be like, hey, property, you've done your job for me. Thank you. I'm going to commercial or I'm going to another asset class, and don't feel bad about it. I'm a property guy here telling you, you can do that. It's okay.
Okay. And for your own personal portfolio, are you guys buying commercial on top? Are you selling off a few of those? You know, because it often, what I see with a couple of people that build bigger portfolios is, you know, they race out to this great big number. And then when they get to that number, they realize, far out, this is a bit of a headache. I need to sell a few of those cheaper ones off. As you said, realize whatever profit you can get back them. And then you might start consolidating, you know, 3 resi sold off, I buy 1 commercial. Sell another 3 off, I buy 1 commercial. Have less headaches, you know. You can have 10 $300,000 properties, or you can have 1 $3 million property. The person that's got the 10, you know, is in the top 0 point, you know, whatever of investors. But the other guy that has one $3 million property has probably more passive income. So what are you currently doing in your portfolio? Are you selling off any, keeping to get to make those commercial purchases?
Yeah, so I'm going to do my best to keep everything if I can.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to recognize why people should and shouldn't, right? Like I'm in my 30s, as I mentioned before. So if I'm going to sell stuff now, I'm losing what I call the second and third decade advantage, right? And if we follow the whole 10 years, 10 years, and 10 years of things doubling, the 500 going to $1 million is a double times 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
The $1 million going to $2 million over the next decade is times 4 of the original investment, not times 2.
But still the same, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And then the $2 million going to $4 million is now many, many more, right? It's times 8.
Yeah.
So 3 decades times 8, not 3 decades, 2, 4, 6.
Correct.
So therefore, the third decade kicks in. And if I started in my 20s, 20s to 30s, 30s to 40s, 40s to 50s, like, man, that's the point at which it's done the heaviest lifting. So I want to try and minimize the sales, even if it takes me longer to acquire the commercial. And life's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I have had moments like the last 8 weeks where I wasn't doing anything, as in no laptop open, no phones going too crazy, just lying down, chilling, recovering.
You reading?
Man, not even reading much, just YouTube. YouTube was big. So I was just on YouTube. As soon as my thumbs got going, the PlayStation came out. I was gaming. UFC, anyone up for a challenge? Let's go.
Yeah.
And essentially, 8 weeks was hell, not doing things that were purposeful.
Yeah.
So can you imagine consolidating in your 30s, going into commercial and sitting at home? Like, come on, man. Like, I love my kid. I love my wife. I love my family. Yeah. But every minute of the day together all start to end with no purpose. Like, we're going to run out of things to talk about. We're going to run out of things to just chill about. I don't think that's a life of purpose. I think most people, if you gave them the instant don't work and see how you go, happiness lasts for a few months. If they really find a few cool things, then afterwards they're seeking purpose, and it usually isn't sitting around doing nothing. So no way am I going to consolidate to have a quick win today. Mm-hmm. I'm in it for the long one.
It's a good point you make, because I think if you look at any of the compound growth, and maybe when this goes live, we'll do a text post, but yeah, that compound growth of the first 10, the second 10, and then it's really that last 10 years, if you're holding for 30 years, that's when the compound growth just goes absolutely bananas. I think there's there's analogy of a dollar every day doubling for like 31 days or 41 days or something like that, and it's like, you don't think about it, but like by the 41st day, it's like at $1 million. I'm probably butchering this, and we'll post it online, but like it isn't to that really last sweet spot. But it's interesting you say that, because you're almost restarting, if you are selling those off, you're almost restarting your compound clock by getting into the commercial. What's your take? I know you guys have been for a long time based on resi, still with that commercial arm, but what's your sweet spot, or what are the prices you're looking at for a commercial asset, just like for you personally?
Yeah, for me personally, I think like, because I'm willing to be patient to build it up and go into a high income asset, knowing I've got the volume of properties in residential personally, I'd probably want to go around that 2.5 to 5 million at each purchase. Mm-hmm. Only because when you're going into an asset that's like that income focused, you really want to get the best of the best. And I feel that sits in that 2.5 to 5 million per purchase level when it comes to commercial. Also, I'm a believer, and this is, each to their own for this, I'm a believer of doing my best not to leverage for the deposit of commercial. Okay, and that's something interesting. I've seen stuff overseas, and I'll give Uncle G a shout out, Grant Cardone.
Oh, right? I just said it. Yeah, okay.
Uncle G, the big shout out for him is he made this rule of always going 30% deposits on properties. And I couldn't understand. I was like, dude, that makes no sense. And the leverage in Australia is fantastic, and that allowed us to build a portfolio to today. But he also goes about some crazy stuff around don't buy a home, homes are not, don't buy a family. Like, and I go against that because they're not the same markets. But then one thing he always said in all his cash flow whiteboard examples, he'd always be like, all right, you got 30 down, you got a loan of 70, you got 35 down, a loan of 65. Like, his American accent's coming in. And I kept noticing the 30 and 35. And then I dug somewhere to find out, no, these aren't them pulling out equity for every place like you have here. Because go and sit down and do a commercial deal, like wrap out a cash flow. And yes, they're meant to be cash flow assets, but pull out a deposit from a residential place. Did you add that into your formula? Most people don't. They'll go 70 purchase, 70 yen, 30 on the deposit, 70 on loan, 50, 60 grand positive cash flow, even at high interest rates, brilliant stuff. I'll be like, where did the 30 come from?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there. Okay, where did the 5 to 7% of investment cost for purchasing, stamp duty, buyer's agent, lawyers, pest and building, whatever? Oh, equity. Well, now you do the calcs. Some deals can still be positive.
Yep.
But we're talking dollars and cents now. So you're going into $3 million of risk for dollars and cents of just positive when it's meant to be your income asset.
Yep.
So to me, I'm like, look, I will have a slow roll on commercial, but I want to work my butt off. I want to be able to save. I want to have discipline, and I want to get to the deposits so that day one, I take a leap in passive income because it's 30% down, 35% down, and not leveraged.
Cash,
That's my key, because the leverage I can just keep doing in the residential. Like, that's high leverage. There's no better world than going 80 and 90% there. In leverage, you can just keep adding more residentials if the equity growth's there. Because someone could argue with me and go, well, Arj, you're missing out on the equity growth of the commercial if you put it into your portfolio sooner. You're having a larger portfolio sooner if you make the move sooner. But like, how much is enough? Like, when's the enough point of that, right? I'd rather have the portfolio start to turn into something really fulfilling in terms of what it can do for you. And I think that extra meaty deposit, now we've got the residential base there, let that go through, that helps.
Mate, 35% deposit on a
take time.
2 to 5 million. Like,
take time.
Okay, couple more. We need a couple more clients. Okay, so look, I think this has been really interesting chat, and I think it has been one that if you've listened to this and you think it's something your partner or your friend or family members can get good value from, share it around with them, because I think it is, because there's a lot of people where they think the PPR is the right thing, then they want to go back into investing, and they just get the order mixed out. And I think what you've done is you've laid this out into, a few different core strategies and moments. We've talked about how we can grow that investment portfolio when that PPR will come in. And then we've spoken about, our exit strategies and stuff like that. So to summarize, I think you're right how you answered my initial question. Is buy and hold dead? I'm going to say no, it's not. I'm not going to say no, it's not. But you need to be extremely strategic with how you approach it and how you plan it. Do you have anything else do you want to add on the end of this, just for everyone listening at home? Usually it's a golden nugget, but I mean, the episode's full of them. So I know you've got a lot of podcast gigs lined up, but anything you can share from us as a closing note?
Yeah, I think what I've heard you just summarize then, and if we lock in on the PPR at the start or at the end, take it at the start of the journey or near the start, and just know you've got an uphill battle for investing, but at least you're locked in. Or it's at the end, knowing that you're going to hit your investments, set yourself up for life, and then get to one. And if that is a battle that takes some time to get to, it's not like you're living nowhere. You're living somewhere. You're just not living in that PPOR, but you'll get there. And how cool would it feel to get there, knowing that you've got your investment set for life? So I think, do not be this like in and out person. Got an investment. Oh, do we go to home now? Maybe, maybe not. And then guess what? In decision-making mode, being in decision probably made your next investment take 2 or 3 years longer. And so I would say at the start or at the end, live with the consequences that come on the other side, because there's a reward in one of those sides too.
Yeah, Aidan Hartley, who we had on a couple of months back, had a really good quote. He said, do the easy things for a hard life or the hard things for an easy life? And I think that sums up that first choice is, you can cash and get that PPR first, uphill battle with investing, or to me, it makes absolute sense to reinvest. I live in an incredible apartment in a really good location. I could probably buy it, but I know my investing journey would be, as you said, an incredibly uphill battle. So yeah, rent investing 1,000%. I'm on that train as well. And you raise a good point. What is, though, now with your second life, Arjun 2.0,
Yeah.
what's the quote you live in your new life by?
Oh man, this quote's been, coming up a fair bit in recent discussions, and it actually isn't a new one. It came up from my high school, or pre-high school, actually start of high school days.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot for the moon. If you miss, you'll be amongst the stars. Old basketball coach used to say that a lot. And
shoot for the hoop, if you miss, it's an air ball.
Yeah, a lot of air balls in my time, but I kept my follow-up through the whole time, even with an air ball. So form was good, baby. Result wasn't, but yeah, that's it.
Perfect, man. Well, look, thanks for joining me on the Everything Property Podcast. Looking forward to seeing you get up into full speed running again. 8 weeks out from open heart surgery. Incredible that you're in doing podcasts. You're back in the office as well. Man, it's really inspiring to see, and can't wait to see some of these commercial deals that you get for yourself and the numbers on them, man. So thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much.
Too easy.